The making of the movie Rust is a story of chaos, neglect, and death. Now, years later, we finally know the truth about the shooting that shook Hollywood to the core. Firearms are one of the most dangerous items you'll find on a movie set. As such, protocol is always put in place when it comes to handling even fake weaponry, and it's the job of an armorer to ensure that protocol is followed. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed served as armorer during filming on Rust, which meant that she was ultimately in charge of keeping the cast and crew safe, but she didn't have the experience to match that responsibility. With very few credits to her name, Gutierrez-Reed landed the job because the production was desperate. Rust was being produced on location outside Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the filmmaker's two previous hires for the position had quit just before filming could begin. Gutierrez-Reed got the gig because she was local, available, and would work for a lower salary than her colleagues. Besides her lack of experience as an armorer, Gutierrez-Reed had never received any sort of formal training in firearm management. She was, however, the daughter of Theo Reed, a respected armorer and gun coach who'd worked on dozens of films. Gutierrez-Reed's neophyte status didn't go unnoticed on the Rust set. Actor Frances Fisher discussed her first meeting with the armorer in the Hulu documentary Last Take, recalling how she would carry around piles of guns in a haphazard manner.
She's got an armful of guns. Just barreled her way in.
Other witnesses remember Gutierrez-Reed leaving firearms laying around on set unattended for significant periods of time. In the weeks before the shooting of Helena Hutchins, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed received a reprimand from line producer Gabrielle Pickle. The offense? She was spending too much time on firearm preparation, which came at the expense of her duties as an assistant in the Rust props department. That was troubling to producers primarily because it was costing them money. Gutierrez-Reed earned a higher rate for her time as an armorer than she did working props. Yet Gutierrez-Reed also got in trouble with Pickle and other senior producers for not spending enough time on her duties as an armorer, so she reportedly pushed for more time to train with the film's star and main on-screen gun handler, Alec Baldwin. But Pickle, closely watching the budget and schedule, eliminated these training sessions. The only practice and training Baldwin received were Hutchins' in-the-moment directions about where to hold and fire the weapon. The fatal shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins occurred on the 12th day of filming. Production in earnest had only barely begun, but in the days leading up to the tragedy, the set had already seen 3 other firearm failures. 2 prop weapons had accidentally discharged without warning, and a dangerously loud sound effects-based explosive went off near crew members. Producers failed to investigate or follow up on complaints over these mishaps. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, meanwhile, assumed she'd be terminated over the gun errors, but she wasn't. Just one day before the final incident, Rust first camera assistant Lane Looper quit, citing various safety issues and workplace grievances in his resignation letter.
Lax COVID policies, the housing situation driving to and from Albuquerque, and specifically gun safety.
Looper asserted that crew and cast were barely informed about safety issues, staged gunfights were sloppily choreographed, and safety bulletins went ignored. Looper, along with a handful of other crew members who followed him, feared that it was merely a matter of time before something horrible happened. Filming got underway on October 21, 2021 with a lighter crew than intended. Along with first camera assistant Lane Looper, 10 other crew members had left Rust because they felt unsafe. Helena Hutchins was shocked by the news, but she soldiered on. Before the production broke for launch, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed cleaned and loaded the prop gun to be used by Alec Baldwin for a gunplay heavy sequence. Gutierrez-Reed claimed to have loaded the weapon with dummy cartridges, which resembled real bullets. It's the job of the first assistant director to oversee the armor in order to provide a secondary level of safety. Rust's first AD, Dave Halls, claimed to have glanced at the dummy rounds in the gun but didn't thoroughly investigate. At any rate, nobody rechecked the gun after lunch when the sequence was set up to film. On most sets, a cinematographer would instruct an actor on where to aim their firearm from a relative distance, usually behind a bank of monitors known as a video village. Because Rust was a low-budget indie film dealing with a mass crew exodus, however, Hutchins showed Baldwin what to do with his gun while standing just a few feet away from the actor. During this informal rehearsal session, the gun discharged in Baldwin's hand and fired a projectile, striking Hutchins in the chest. Helena Hutchins remained conscious and alert immediately after she was shot.
I said, "Are you okay?" She looked up at me and said, "I can't feel my legs."
Shortly thereafter, Hutchins lost consciousness. She was transported via helicopter to a hospital in Albuquerque. The cinematographer may have died in the helicopter en route to receive treatment, although other media sources claim she died at the hospital. She was 42 years old. The news of the tragedy reached Rust's crew in various ways. Baldwin was shocked into silence when an officer informed him that Hutchins had died while he was undergoing questioning at a police station in Santa Fe. Most of the rest of the crew had been rounded up into a tent and told by a senior member of production not to speak to the media about the shooting. News helicopters had already begun to hover over the set, and paparazzi had blocked both exits. Cast member Josh Hopkins said in Last Take that a set medic had announced that Hutchins' injuries were not life-threatening, which only led to further shock when they learned she had died. While the death of Halyna Hutchins received the vast majority of the press coverage, scrutiny, and legal fallout for the crew members deemed allegedly responsible, there were 2 other victims of unintended gunfire on the set of Rust. After the projectile passed through Hutchins, it continued to travel and hit the shoulder of the person standing next to her, Rust director Joel Souza. At the time, Souza had been overseeing Hutchins' instructions to Baldwin on how he should hold the gun before filming would begin. The director's injuries weren't life-threatening, but they were serious. He was rushed by ambulance from the set to a nearby hospital in Santa Fe. There, he underwent emergency surgery to remove what was found to be an actual round of live ammunition, not a dummy. Souza made a full physical recovery, but after the death of Hutchins, he experienced depression and suicidal ideation. Pretty much the only thing not disputed about the accidental death of Halyna Hutchins is that an object discharged from a gun penetrated the chest of the cinematographer, and it killed her. What remains a mystery, however, is how a real bullet found its way into a gun used as a prop and how it exited that firearm. Alec Baldwin held the weapon in his hand while he rehearsed the shootout sequence as Hutchins stood close by. At that point, what was thought to be a dummy cartridge left the gun, but Baldwin claimed both in interviews and to authorities that he didn't pull the trigger. The actor was ultimately charged with involuntary manslaughter as prosecutors in New Mexico argued he was responsible for firing a test shot. They said that Baldwin's rehearsal technique was needlessly detailed and therefore dangerous. Baldwin himself professed his innocence, insisting that he had never believed the gun to be capable of firing.
Well, I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
Usually, movie armorers use dummy rounds in prop guns. These resemble real bullets, but they're designed to not fire out of the chamber like actual ammunition. Somehow, though, the revolver used by Alec Baldwin in Rust was loaded with live ammunition. With a cast and crew perplexed as to how a dummy bullet could have shot and killed Halyna Hutchins, doctors operating on director Joel Souza extracted the live round, throwing a whole new light on the investigation that was to come. Despite these investigations and the court proceedings that followed, it remains undetermined how, why, and when the bullet was placed in the gun. Authorities uncovered numerous similar bullets around the set, including on the armorer's cart, one in a pocket on Baldwin's costume, and still more in boxes of dummy rounds brought to the set by Hannah Gutierrez Reed. They appeared to have been left over from a previous film production. Virtually indistinguishable from the dummy rounds, one of those stray bullets was presumably loaded into the gun. Gutierrez Reed, who inspected the weapon early on the day Hutchins died, admitted she should have checked the firearm once more before handing it off to Baldwin, as it may have led her to discover the error. The armorer's weapons supervisor, Assistant Director Dave Halls, also confessed to not giving the weapon enough of an inspection. Had he done so, he may also have uncovered the live round. After the death of Halyna Hutchins, production on Rust shut down indefinitely. In April 2023, a year and a half later, the cast and crew reassembled, this time in Montana, to finish filming the movie. In a statement to ABC News, a Rust Movie Productions lawyer said, "The production will continue to utilize union crew members and will bar any use of working weapons and any form of ammunition. Live ammunition is, and always was, prohibited on set." Rust was only able to return to active production after a lawsuit brought on by Hutchins' husband was resolved. In the end, Matthew Hutchins joined the new Rust crew as its chief executive producer, and he oversaw what later became a tribute of sorts to his late wife. The new cinematographer, Bianca Klein, promised to make the movie that Halyna Hutchins had intended, making use of extensive notes and instructions left behind.
No one gets to watch her film unless somebody finishes it for her.
Klein also donated her salary to charity. Following lengthy investigations into the shooting and the work environment on the set that led to it, legal authorities censored and prosecuted the parties deemed responsible. In April 2022, the New Mexico Occupational Safety and Health Administration fined Rust producers $136,793, the heaviest fine it was legally able to impose. This was for being found guilty of the organization's most severe charge, willfully disregarding workplace safety laws and rules. Rust Movie Productions objected. As part of a settlement, the company paid $100,000 and agreed it had committed a serious rather than willful disavowal of the rules. In February 2023, the Santa Fe District Attorney's Office filed charges of criminal negligence and involuntary manslaughter against Alec Baldwin, alleging that his firing of the gun contributed to the death of Halyna Hutchins. The case was fully dismissed in July 2024, after the presiding judge ruled that the prosecution had unfairly failed to disclose evidence to Baldwin's defense team. First Assistant Director David Halls, who had passed off the handgun to Baldwin before it was fired, was sentenced to 6 months of probation after agreeing to a plea deal over a charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon. For her role in the incident, armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed was found guilty on account of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 18 months in prison. Meanwhile, the state of California subsequently passed a law requiring stricter and safer standards for gun handling on the sets of film and TV productions. At long last, Rust premiered in 2024 at a Polish film festival. One of the few English-language reviews published by Vulture read, "Rust didn't choose to echo its own tragedies, but they coursed through a film that is often compelling and capable, an appropriately unvarnished Western tale about guilt, blame, family, law, and devotion. The movie has yet to receive a U.S. release date."